This next story here has been a strange discussion that's been taking Twitter for a ride this past week. Apparently this happens to be a hot take nowadays. In my opinion, if you have the means to experience a video game yourself, then you should simply not be a fan of it. There are more hobbies out there. Which seems to be understandable. You might be thinking, oh, what kind of elitist narrative is this? Well, we're not talking about, like other times, people that have trouble finishing games. That would be an understandable thing to happen. We're not talking about people that refuse to engage with intended mechanics in the games. Which sounds a little bit suspicious, but it's not something that doesn't exist. It's something we've seen far too many times in recent times too. We're talking about people that refuse to actually play the video games, yet they still call themselves fans. It is my understanding this comes from Resident Evil quote-unquote fans, saying that they're huge fans of Resident Evil, but they only watch Let's Plays / streams. And that doesn't make any sense to me. If you're a fan of a video game, shouldn't you want to play the video game? I think that makes total sense. I understand that maybe some of the newer games you cannot play them because they might require a device that's too powerful and you don't own, or maybe these new games are maybe a little bit too expensive. Sure, I can be understanding of such situations, but just the outright refusal to play the games is insane to me. It's a video game. The objective of a video game is to play it. And sure, I actually enjoy, speaking of Resident Evil, watching people play Resident Evil. Not because I'm a fan. My experience with Resident Evil amounts to like 10 minutes playing 4, like 15 years ago, but because I like those content creators. I would never call myself a Resident Evil fan, because I am clearly not a fan. I even think those games are not for me. But having those videos on the side while do some other thing can be an entertaining experience. There's nothing wrong with that. The replies here are expanding a little bit more the idea. Instead of the simple train of thought, we try to normalize that it's okay to not interact with the medium, still be a fan of the thing. Why? It doesn't make any sense. I have to say, it's funny, people are trying to call me elitist while they believe video games are art, and such should be as accessible as possible. Game playthroughs aren't part of this. Oh, and piracy is a good thing. This guy said it, not me. Do not quote me on that. The most insane thing here is not only that this is considered to be some sort of hot take, is that people, if you go to the quotes, will say stuff like, "This sounds so privileged." I mean, yeah, if you want to partake in a product, you need to be able to buy the product. Video games are still products, okay? There's nothing wrong with that, but these people will use poor people, disabled people, to defend sheer insanity. 87,000 people, are we sure? On Twitter, agree with this insane sentiment. What are you talking about, pal? Privileged. Video games are one of the most, if not the most accessible hobby there is out there that requires a purchase. But you need to buy a device. But you need to buy the video games. You're saying stuff on Twitter. You have a device. It's either a computer or a phone. Did you know you can play a lot of things on those? Yeah. It's insane. You can just emulate a lot of video games. My old computer, at this point, it has to be like 15 years old, could run with no trouble PS2 and Wii games. Resident Evil came out on the PS1. You could play easily through at least Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and 4 with such an old computer. Phones nowadays can also emulate an insane amount of video games. My first smartphone, Samsung Galaxy Ace. I was playing Game Boy Advance on that thing so many years ago. Video games nowadays can easily emulate the PSP. Okay? It's not that difficult. Ah, the poor people. At some point you have to reconcile that you are a beggar. If you're a beggar, you cannot be a chooser, I'm sorry. And what's even more pernicious here is the fact that they will use disabled people as a shield when they're just trying to protect their sheer sloth here. I'm kind of becoming better Betelgeuse here. What such a slothful way of living. They are video games. I shouldn't be here begging you to play the video games that you like. If it's a video game and you like it, natural train of thought would be, I like this video game, therefore I want to play it. You're making all of the excuses in the world just to not play the games that you're a fan of. In theory, it is insane. 87,000 likes on this tweet saying, so privileged. Of course we see insane narrative here. That's an idiot. If you like something but you can't enjoy it due to money or other means, you didn't deserve to like it in the first place, clearly. Do you hear yourself? You cannot be a fan if you don't interact meaningfully with the thing. Oh boy, I do like racing. It's so privileged that I cannot buy a 50,000 race car. Well, yeah. What about that? There's a barrier of entry if you wanna be a racer. You can still watch it, but you're clearly not a racer. You're something else. And this is the same difference. These people do not qualify as gamers, I'm sorry. But they do wear that as a skin suit. I do think that people may believe I'm too harsh when call these individuals, these insane creatures on the internet, illegal immigrants instead of tourists. They are worse than that. They're nothing more than parasites. What you also like. People should play the games they're interested in. So especially in Emulation, it's very accessible nowadays. Ah, you hate pores! You hate pores. Currently you have a device. You can just emulate the stuff. You can just wait for Steam sales and buy games for what? $3? Don't you have $5? And I cannot believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna say it because beggars cannot be choosers. You could even have an Epic Games account. They give free games all the time. Not that people play them still because people hate Epic with a burning passion. But if you need somebody to give you free games, you can just sell your soul to China. It's just that easy. Interact with the hotline my MLRper and you'll see when this take is right. And we have some takes here that I do think are really accurate and kinda shapes gaming in the past 10 to 15 years. Starting to come to the conclusion that like 90% of vitriolic discourse in the games industry the last 10 years and defense of bad developers / bad games has been largely driven by people who don't even play video games. 10 to 15 years, how curious. Literally the same as the rise of social media. For these people, video games, or I suppose video game fandoms, happen to be just some sort of social gathering. Now that's my hobby, it's not for you to LARP about or try to make friends. I mean, you can still make friends if you're a gamer, right? Despite the strange allegations. If they're just making excuses to not play the games they in theory enjoy, they're clearly not fans. Having to suffer and play games with the lowest possible specs so they can rag on your potato. Having to trudge through several iterations of games completely in Japanese way before I could read anything of the language, because those games were never getting translated. That's what happened back in my day, when we wanted to play the games that we were fans of. Nowadays, it's just stream slapper and video game essays, or even worse, TikTok shorts. Look at this guy being kind of a funny goof. So, if I play a game I don't like, am I still a fan? Because I played it? What are the rules here? How does this work? I'm too old and set in my ways for this shit, man. Of course, here's the flowchart to help you understand better. Do you play the game? No. You're not a fan. Do you play the game? Yes. Do you like it? No. Clearly, you're not a fan. Do you like it? Yes. You are a fan. It's simplified for sure. I think like some sort of nuance about perhaps some sort of passion or being interested in playing more games or knowing more about it. But maybe that's just me. And there's also this thread by Christina Tasty, which she makes a lot of sense here, and I don't like it. I was beating myself a little bit over the head, because I didn't realize this before. But in my defense, I will say that I found this narrative about fans of Let's Plays while I just woke up, so that's gonna be my excuse. I hope you don't mind it. Backlash makes sense when you realize many people want to use their fan status to give their arguments, or wait when they inevitably demand to change / censor games they've never played. Ergo, when they pretend to care about poor people to emotionally manipulate you. Also, I don't think she's gonna mention it here, but I do think it's absolutely nasty not to just use poor people, because they don't really have to do anything with this conversation, but to use disabled people. They're using disabled people as a shield and as a crutch to push developers to create more strange accessibility options. And these accessibility options, as we've seen, mean the plane just plays itself. Because these people don't play games. Therefore, I guess disabled people cannot engage meaningfully with the games either. I think that's BS. I do think that disabled people might need special controllers or special ways of interacting with the game, but they will still interact with the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just trying to skip the game in general because of my disability, well, if you're too disabled to play video games, you're gonna be playing video games. That's the end of it. And using that as an excuse to make games worse, it affects everybody in the hobby. Well, not them, because they didn't even actually play the games. Then you encounter these new players going to Crimson Desert. Oh, the game is so difficult. Oh, the puzzles, they're impossible. Why? Because you don't have an NPC telling you the solution in 2.5 seconds? This is not a Vanguard, okay? You can tell, because they're mad over anyone suggesting alternatives like Emulation / Sailing the Seven Seas. Because if they don't suggest ways to play games cheaply or free, they can use poor people as a weapon to shame you. You don't believe games are art, they believe games are content. There's a lot to unpack here just in this tweet. First, the emulation technique. Especially when we talk about Resident Evil. I already mentioned 1, 2, and 3 in the PS1. Did you know there's a version of Resident Evil 1 for the DS? Did you know you have Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color? You can just play Game Boy Color games on literally anything. I could use a shoe for that, I bet. And my shoes are normal, not even electronic. That's insane to me. That's what happened back in the day, right? Oh, look. See, these people didn't buy the NES or the SNES. So maybe we can port some of these games to the portable consoles. That's how we got Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 on the Game Boy Color. Nothing wrong with that. I actually played Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Color. Not in my normal Game Boy, but my special Game Boy. And there was nothing wrong with that. It's pretty much the same game anyway. That's why we got Final Fantasy 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 on the GBA, for example. Most games, most well-known games, are in many different platforms, so it's even easier to pick them up and play them. It's insanity to me. And once again, if I could emulate already PS2 and Wii games with a 15-year-old computer, there are no excuses nowadays. You don't need an extremely expensive device. Even second-hand consoles like the PS4 have to be really cheap nowadays. And the second point, they believe games are content. I've seen some creatures on the internet, not a lot, I will admit to that, but I've seen some that treat every single piece of media, like for example movies, as quote-unquote content. No. Content is what I make here on YouTube, on Twitch, on Kick. Is it really valuable? Probably not. But it's not a movie, it's not a video game, it's something different. There are different pieces of media. Not everything is content. The content brain is really bad this is. I'd argue that if you don't have the means in today's day and age have never been more achievable. Because again, the government's claiming to be a FNAF fan despite never playing the games, and it's like, you're gonna play it on the thing you're posting with. Also, isn't Five Nights at Freddy's like less than $5 on Steam? Not really heavily interested in that game, but I do think that is correct. If you want to be a fan, there will always be at least one guy who will find a way to make whatever you want to be a fan of work on the most potato of computers. They need to strike while the iron is out, outweighs their patience through a Steam sale. Stone Zinni, I don't know what Zinni is. It's not a joke, I actually don't know. You also even have some crazy lads out there making remakes like Bloodborne PS1? Never played it, but it looks pretty interesting. Not too big in Souls-likes, I'm sorry. Nothing there for me. But this is the point we're at. We're begging these creatures to actually partake in their hobbies. This is not just skinwalking, this is not illegal immigration, this is just pure sloth. And we're supposed to care what these people say? No! They are the lowest of the low. Now with this, we can finally understand, though, if you've seen some of these quote-unquote Persona fans, you know they've never played the games. You finally see these people that want to drive the conversations about the hobbies didn't understand anything of the hobbies. They have never played these games, and they will never play these games. That's the funniest part of all. They will never play because they keep making excuses. I'm sick of these individuals. And I do hope that companies stop catering to them. Just make the good game once again, and everybody can be happy. And if these people cannot be happy, good.